I know we've all experienced something in our lives that feels unexplainable or unsolvable. Maybe an encounter with a peculiar stranger, a mystery within your family, or a piece of media you come across on the internet. Luckily for a lot of us, in most scenarios, they don't stray too far from being lighthearted, and it's just the curiosity of the unknown that makes us want an answer, but sometimes that isn't the case, and these mysteries can take a dark turn for the worst. Getting input from outsiders who have different perspectives or resources helps significantly. r/RBI is a subreddit where users come together to try to solve real-world mysteries. They aided in finally putting the 1-800-GOLF tip mystery to rest, many others, and continue to help solve anything from tip-of-my-tongue styled posts to true crime. Today, we are going to be diving into some of the most unsettling cases from this subreddit. Let's get right into it. A woman posing as a nurse stole my blood from an Indiana, USA emergency room in 1996 to 1997 when I was 5 or 6 years old. User Pagan Princess 22 starts their post with saying this happened 23 years ago and there were never any charges filed. OP's younger sister encouraged them to look more into the incident, wanting to figure out who the nurse could have been, or if anything similar had happened in that time frame. When I was around 5 or 6, I got a pretty bad nosebleed that wouldn't stop. I eventually started throwing up big clots of blood as well, and my mother took me to the ER. This would be in or around the Sunman or Indianapolis area in Indiana, USA, but I do not know the name of the hospital. At the time, beds were separated only by curtains on ceiling tracks and not individual walled rooms. My mother had left my room to speak to a doctor. I know she left, and a woman I did not know came in shortly after she left. She was white, had medium brown hair, and looked to be in her 20s to 30s. She was wearing a blue scrub shirt with puppy dogs on it and unmatched pants. I want to say she was not wearing scrub pants, but rather jeans or maybe sweatpants. I know they did not match her shirt, which stood out to me. The other nurses and doctors I saw only wore solid colored scrubs and were all matched. She said she needed to take some blood and pulled the tools to do so from her scrubs pocket, not a phlebotomy cart. She stuck me and started drawing blood, somewhere around 5 to 7 vials of it, but potentially more. On the last vial, we heard my mom and a doctor coming back towards the room. She hurriedly ripped the tube from my arm before the last vial was full. It spilled some blood. She did not give me a band-aid or gauze. She just left me bleeding, and shoved everything back into her pocket, then ran from the room. She ran to the left, and my mom and doctor entered from the right. The doctor said a nurse would be with me soon to draw some blood and run some tests. I told him a lady had already taken my blood, and he asked what she looked like and where she went. I described her. He turned wide-eyed to my mother and said, "She doesn't work here," and ran out of the room to the left. I heard some loud voices, there was a lot of commotion, but I don't remember anything past that point other than just feeling dizzy and now scared that some strange woman had my blood. I've never been able to find out what the hell happened, who this woman was, and if she was ever caught. If this type of thing was happening across the country at the time, I have no idea. Let me know if there's any other information I could provide that might make it easier to find out what happened to my blood. My mother is not a great source of information when it comes to my early life, or her life, or anything really, as she has some of her own issues. Several years ago, when I was a teenager, confirmed the details I remembered, then refused to talk further about it and asked me to not bring it up again. She claims she does not remember the name of the hospital, the name of the doctor, or other details I was asking for at the time. This story in particular stuck out for me because I've had a fear of blood tests for years, so reading it definitely made me feel squirmy. The top comment is what we're all probably thinking, and someone added that it was just a nice vampire. But let's get on to the few theories that were brought up. This user asked OP if there was a chance they could have been adopted, suggesting the idea of a biological mother trying to steal blood to prove maternity. But OP had seen their birth certificate with their known parents listed and looked similar to their mom and sister. OP did propose the possibility of a mentally ill person just believing that to be the case, however, I don't think this is a likely solution. Another theory was an addict trying to get out of a blood test, but this user pointed out how bringing your own blood wouldn't fly. It could, however, have been someone who worked at a lab facility being bribed by an addict, or even a nurse facing a drug test. Cast Pearls commented, "Sounds like from the doctor's reaction, they knew of her and her antics. Most likely a mentally unstable person posing as a hospital employee with some odd notions of being a nurse. If you know the doctor's name, try looking him up and asking him. Try reaching out to the hospital to ask." Being only 5 or 6 at the time of the incident though, OP unfortunately did not remember the name of the hospital. All that was known was they were staying with a friend in between Sunman and Indianapolis at the time of the nosebleed. The mother's refusal to give any type of additional details only makes this case tougher to resolve. Sounds like your mother may have been involved. In some of your comments and in your edit, you've said she remembers this happening but refuses to talk about it. That's highly concerning. Your mom knows the truth. I think that is the most unnerving aspect of this story. Having this unresolved childhood memory that would have caused a lot of stress at the time, only for your mother to refuse giving you any helpful details, leaving you confused about what actually happened to you. Because another thing with being 5 or 6 is it was commonly agreed within the thread that the most logical explanation is OP was misremembering exactly how the sequence of events happened, meaning there wouldn't have even been a vampire nurse. User SurveillancFan13 commented, "To draw blood isn't that easy. She must have had a training of some sort." Multiple people were thinking this entire situation was just the faulty memory of a child, especially considering no police report was made. Telling OP they could have just gotten a shitty blood test that freaked them and their mother out, or if their mother could have put it in their head what happened was worse than it was. My personal favorite theory, though, that I think is definitely within the realm of possibility, is a new or student nurse accidentally drawing blood from the wrong patient. Naturally, this would have caused her to freak out, explain her seeming inexperienced, and why there was a commotion but no police report. I think childhood memories can be more accurate than we realize. The chances of this being nothing more than a painful blood test are slim, but I'd say so is the idea of a blood thief. I'm sure the answer is somewhere in between, but one thing for sure is I would also bet on OP's mother knowing the truth behind this mystery. Every single time a particular friend makes me food, I get sick. So a friend of mine who is not a close friend, more so an old work colleague I catch up with sporadically, cooks for us when we do catch up. I had started to notice that soon after I have horrible stomach cramps, but with IBS I am used to having some stomach issues, so I wasn't joining the dots. The last 2 times previous to today, I have had extremely severe stomach cramps and felt dizzy, so that was it for me and I've decided no more food cooked by him. Today we catch up over a glass of wine at an establishment and he makes a joke about putting eye drops in someone's drink to make them sick. It made me really uncomfortable. Reddit, how would I go about this? Am I being paranoid and now connecting the wrong dots? Can you prove something like this? I had never even heard of using eye drops to poison someone's drink/food until today. This one gets under my skin because it makes you remember there are people like this just hanging out in the world. It reminds me of the whole cooking with Hug Botko thing that Scare Theater did a video on a while back. While that was proven to just be a strange film, the fact remains that there are plenty instances of people contaminating food. And it's quite frankly disgusting. Blood test and germy food, those are my fears. I wouldn't meet that friend anymore. I won't be. I got a very bad feeling when he made the joke. User the Parasite said, eye drops in someone's food can be deadly. There's a YouTube channel called That Chapter that talked about someone murdering their husband or wife that way. If a minute amount is used, it supposedly causes diarrhea and possible vomiting. It's kind of messed up to do to someone. I've been reading all about it, never heard of this ever. Now, I don't know if he made a very bad taste joke in poor timing and he is just a terrible cook or what is going on. You are absolutely not being paranoid. Your friend was admitting what he did. Very dangerous person. I hope he does not work in the medical field. BZ237 suggested researching eye drop poisoning symptoms to see if they matched up to what OP experienced, and if so, then they shouldn't be hanging out with him anymore. This user also asked if OP had asked him about getting sick, saying, "See how he reacts and responds and read his body language. It will tell you a lot. But I'd suggest taking a break from him one way or another. I won't be ever going to his home again. I don't even mind cutting all contact as he is a bit mentally draining to be around." I did mention after getting sick the first ever time he cooked, as it was chicken and cream, and I mentioned it in a way of genuine concern. He may have also been sick, but he took offense and made it clear he is very careful when cooking poultry. Getting defensive instead of remorseful when you might have given your friend food poisoning is definitely a red flag. This reminds me of that post where the OP kept getting sick from food her boyfriend made her and found out it was because he put slugs in it. Don't ever hang out with this guy again, he sounds nuts. There were other stories in the thread of users sharing similar disturbing experiences of their own. Kiltira said, "People legitimately mess with the food they give others, and it's scary. One of my exes was dating a girl. I used to hang out with them both. I'm extremely allergic to tree nuts and peanuts. She said her mom was making fudge, so my ex and I explicitly told her to make sure not to put nuts in one of the batches because of my allergy. She said she would watch and make sure she didn't add any. Fast forward to the girl bringing the fudge over. She said without prompting, I made sure there's not a single nut in any of them. I took one bite of a piece of fudge and it was absolutely loaded with nuts. Shortly after, I started throwing up and my throat was closing up. I had to use my EpiPen. She swore she felt horrible and that she honestly didn't know there were any in there, but not once while I was throwing up did she show any concern. She turned the TV up to drown out the sound of me. I never ate anything she gave me after that. It was absolutely terrifying to realize she probably did it on purpose and that I could have died from what she did. Please trust your gut. If something seems off, it probably is." And this user said they worked with servers who'd claimed to put Visine in the coffee of troublesome customers. I know shady customers can be really annoying, but poisoning them with eye drops? It was reiterated by some people in the comments that OP does have IBS, so it could have been chalked up to the type and amount of oil he used or using too much butter. Taking his weird vibe into account though, I think we can agree OP should stay away from this eye drop man. It could be a number of things: malicious poisoning, undercooked or poorly prepared foods, unsanitary kitchen, etc. Whatever it is, don't ever eat what he makes again. In fact, I wouldn't even meet up with this person anymore, because if it was maliciously done, he may progress to something worse. Be safe out there. Several bodies in the back of a pickup truck on Google Street View. Location: Helton, Kentucky, USA. When? August 2009. If you enter the coordinates on Google Street View, you should see a pickup truck with what appears to be several bodies in the back. A little down the road, you should also see military personnel next to a vehicle with jerry cans. There was a similar case a few years back that turned out to be a US Coast Guard search and rescue dummy. While I do not necessarily think these are dead bodies, it may warrant further investigation. This post was from only a little over a month ago, so it may look familiar to anyone who browses the sub. The vast majority of the comments were users pointing out the obvious explanation: people riding around in someone's truck bed, and that it was no cause for concern. Bro, imagine sneaking a ride in a truck bed on grandma's back road and ending up on RBI. No, that's just Kentucky. Unlovable Darkness commented, if you move down the road a bit and look back at the truck, you can see the foot is moved, and then you can very blurry make out someone is leaning over the back of the truck, so they're not dead. And this user thought they could have ducked down if they thought the Google Street View car was a cop or hiding to be silly. So no cause for concern, right? Well, if there was a 0% chance of it being worrisome, it wouldn't have made it into the video. I don't completely pull shit out of thin air to make it spooky, alright? Emily Snow said, everybody wants to shrug this off, but the position of the figure with the foot hanging out is very unnatural. Others were mentioning how not only was the woman's foot resting in an unnatural position, but that it would cause discomfort in a moving vehicle, clinking her ankle against it. Then Funky Morganics had a rather distressing discovery. I would suggest everyone look this up on maps yourself. The truck is much more zoomed in, and you can see the woman is wearing no underwear. You can see what looks like her nether regions. The other body looks like a small child, maybe, but it's hard to tell. I was thinking about the hiding because of seatbelt laws, but seeing it zoomed in like that and that detail is very unsettling. Edit: photo was removed from Imgur due to graphic nature. People couldn't agree whether she was wearing underwear or not. Not only was the image deleted, but Google has since blurred out the entirety of the truck bed, so there isn't any more room for speculation. Even though this results in more questions than answers, I do think it was definitely the right thing to do for the sake of the woman. But the post ended up on 4chan, and users over there found a missing persons report from 2009 in Pikeville, Kentucky, a little less than 2 hours away from the Street View location. The woman's name is Crystal Gale Hall, last seen alive on March 9, 2009. The description of the incident says she was home alone in her apartment on the phone with her friend when she stated someone was coming in the back door. All of her possessions were left in the apartment, and no one has heard from her since. As you can see, she has red hair similar to the woman in the truck, and this photo was taken 5 months after her disappearance in a nearby city, so it's not out of proportion to wonder if this could be Crystal. This is all pure speculation, and very well could be nothing more than people riding in the back of a truck, but to not risk turning a blind eye in case this was something more, user iMakeStuffs did report the Crystal Hall finding to a police department in Kentucky, and a missing persons page that I believe her family made for her on Facebook. It is better to be safe than sorry, and so on the off chance this photo actually is of Crystal Hall, the evidence should thankfully be in the right hands. Legal date of birth isn't the day I was actually born. I've been trying to solve this one a long time. My goal here is just to set my own mind at rest, or get confirmation from my family, since after this long I don't know if I could get my birth certificate amended, and to be honest, it sounds like more trouble than it would be worth. Because of my parents' religious beliefs, me and my brother were homeschooled. I was also born at home at their house, and a birth certificate wasn't filed for me until some time afterwards. It was always kind of an open secret with my family that there was some confusion over when exactly I was born, but I always assumed it was the day or maybe the month that was wrong. Over time, I realized the error is more in the neighborhood of 1.5 to 2.5 years. Around the time I started college, my mom, who I've always had a really strained relationship with, stopped wanting to talk about it, just repeating over and over that there's an official date on my birth certificate and flatly refusing to discuss it further. I moved out shortly after, and we haven't really been in contact since, 10 years ago, so I put this out of my mind for a long time. OP then goes on to use example years of when she thought she was born versus what her birth certificate said. This is kind of confusing to summarize, so bear with me. For example, if my brother was born in 1900, I thought I was born in 1902, but that my birth certificate would say 1903. Instead, when I saw it for the first time, it said 1904. My brother and I are supposedly 4 years apart, but we're only 2 grades apart. I started and graduated homeschooling as if my birth year was 1902. OP has already looked into asking the witnesses of her birth, being her parents, who refused to discuss the topic, grandfather, who is now deceased, her 94-year-old grandmother, not very lucid, and her brother, who was a toddler at the time. Her extended family doesn't live in the same country. She has looked through birth announcements and newspaper archives online, but says the brother didn't get one, so OP is doubtful their parents would do one for her. Lastly, dental and medical records. OP didn't see a doctor or dentist until the age of 10 or 12. She called the old offices, but they no longer have the records as they only keep them for 7 years. All OP had is a set of dental x-rays from when she got her wisdom teeth out in her 20s. She gave some extra details, like she lost her first baby tooth at 4 and was over 4 feet tall by age 6. I know this is only my experience, but I lost my first tooth at 6 and was around this height and weight at 8 years old, so it's safe to assume OP very well could be 2 years older than what her birth certificate claims. Anyway, this got very long and rambly. I don't know, please help. Lol, thanks. Users were quick to provide useful information. Radiator Head Child linked a chart confirming OP was definitely growing fast for the age indicated on the wall markings she added to the post. And this user found parents who intend to homeschool are required to file a lot of documents with the school district, so they wondered if there was a way OP could get access to any of them. I will look into this. Thanks. Yo Banana Girl commented, just doing a quick search, it seems that New York requires births to be registered within 5 days. It makes me wonder if once your grandmother convinced your mom to register your birth, your mom just registered you as a newborn at that time to meet this requirement. While I'm sure there is a way to register a birth past the 5-day window, it's probably more invasive from the government than your mom would have liked, and this seemed like an easy solution. That would make sense. I was never sure what the exact process for filing was. Other sources I read had conflicting information about the requirements, and I wasn't sure which one would have been relevant at the time. One source I saw said that a birth could be registered for up to 12 years if there was evidence such as school, doctor, baptismal, etc. records, none of which would have existed, and that if no evidence could be provided, there would have to be an affidavit signed by the parents and another person outside the immediate family, which would have taken some convincing to get my mom to sign. Your idea makes a lot of sense. In another comment, OP does state the reason she thinks her mother didn't register at first was that her mother felt strongly she didn't want to register her child with the government, and her grandma kept arguing with her that it was a document she needed, and by the time they reached an agreement, quite some time had passed, with no evidence to show when OP had actually been born. Doing all this and causing such confusion and future issues for your child, all because you don't want them registered with the government, is quite messed up, and people started pointing that out. You could be cheated out of years of retirement. Are they admitting it's wrong and refusing to talk, or just refusing to talk? How will you know when it's time to start getting mammograms? Your kids may need to know if you have any health issues. This is really messed up of your parents. Could you have family that you don't remember, aunts or cousins? Did they have any friends? Was there any neighborhood kids you played with? Luckily, I have no kids, but waiting longer to get Social Security or being denied, colonoscopies, etc. has crossed my mind, although at this point in time, I don't even think I'd pursue trying to get my documents amended just for the amount of time and money it would take. None of my family lives even remotely close, but I could definitely try to track down some neighbors. Thanks for your comment. 24 Kitten Gold commented, this is very interesting, and I'm sorry that your parents are being so obstructive. It must be incredibly frustrating. Here's one more idea. Do your parents tend to hang on to items? When my dad passed, we found loads of old receipts stretching back 30 or 40 years, miscellaneous pamphlets, etc. Probably a long shot, but you might be able to find something like an instruction manual for a car seat that might help you identify dates. That's a great idea. They did used to have a junk drawer with a lot of old calendars in it, which would be a gold mine if I can get my hands on it. Since I don't have a good relationship with my family anymore, nor live in the same area, I just keep hoping that someday they'll sell the house and let me clean it out, and then I'll finally get answers, lol. Who knows how long that might take. Thanks for your insight. Another idea was looking at vaccination records, since certain shots are done at certain ages, but to no surprise, OP was not vaccinated until she was an adult. And it wasn't long until users started suggesting the most upsetting theory. Bruh, were you possibly kidnapped at birth? I'm being dead serious. That happens a lot more than you think. Home births are usually the cover-up for any questions. Have you done a DNA to see if they are your parents? I would advise doing an ancestry check. This sounds like the circumstances of a kidnapping victim. However, I would consider this almost debunked, since in another comment, OP says her family has actually encouraged her to get a DNA test. It wouldn't make much sense if they'd presumably want to keep this a secret. User Lyrics did propose the possibility that OP could have been born to a relative that gave her to her parents to raise, and while this still wouldn't add up with her family openly doing DNA tests, I think it is a more likely answer. But it seems OP didn't completely rule out the suspicion of a kidnapping, since in this comment, she says she's going to check out missing children websites. I don't have any advice for you, just sympathy. I'm going through something similar, trying to track down medical records and squeeze info out of my estranged family. It's hard feeling that there's a secret about you and not being able to trust your own parents. I hope you find the answers you're looking for. I hope that she is able to find the answers she rightfully deserves as well. Sadly, the last update from OP was, "No answers yet, just more questions." Since it's a short drive from me, I went to the town where I was supposedly born and asked for a copy of the certificate from the clerk's office and was told it's not on file there, and to contact the commissioner of health at the state capital since they'll have a copy, and will know which town it's also supposed to be housed at. So that's next. But I still would like to believe that she can eventually put this daunting mystery to rest. While in the midst of the infinite internet, the endless posts, it's easy to forget that behind each one is a real person. These are all real people's lives. It seems like such an obvious thing to point out, but how often do you actually stop to think that there is a person with an entire life behind the screen? We've become desensitized to the disturbing pieces of the internet, and another obvious thing is any story can be fake, so you do have to take everything with a grain of salt. But I wanted to make this video not solely for ooh creepy Reddit post, but to bring light to these real life mysteries and hope maybe someone has any type of input for these people. I hope you enjoyed this video. I've linked below each Reddit post in the description in case anyone would like to dive in further. There's an innumerable amount of mysteries out there. We can only hope some get solved. Thank you.